Hey there guys, it's Zologe here with the deck profile for the first of the Pendulums. This is a vanilla Pendulum deck that revolves around using the Lance and the Dragonhorn Hunter as the Pendulum scales. Basically, we have other Pendulum scales as well to bring out our vanilla monsters, and then bringing out first of the dragons to seal the game. So without further ado, let's go into the deck profile and we'll go as we go along. So first run the triple Lance Dragon thing. I don't know what the fuck this guy, how to pronounce this guy's name, so I'm just gonna call it the Lance for the purposes of this video. He just gives all your vanillas trample, basically. So he's pretty awesome in that regard. As you know, this deck kind of runs into a problem when your opponent starts playing defensive because you run beat sticks, and having piercing is actually really nice. Next we go for the one Dragonhorn Hunter. Now having that 200 boost from this guy actually can make the difference between winning and losing a game when you play something like this. When you don't have to rely on monster effects, you kind of need to rely on your attack, and having it as high as possible is really important for you. In general, really. Next we run the triple Focult Cannon. This is a scale 2 that pops a back row at the end of the end phase of the turn is activated. However, it can only pop face-up spell traps. So you can pop like pendulum cards and things like that too. So that's pretty cool. Well, the cards that are in the pendulum zones at least. Next we go for the triple Alexandra Dragon. This is a level 4 2000 beats deck that becomes 2200 under the influence of Dragonhorn Hunter, and it's actually a really neat card to have, because having a 2200 vanilla beater with a piercing is pretty awesome in general. Next we go for the Evil Swarm Heliotrope. This is a 1950 attack point beats deck with piercing when Lance is on board, and it goes 2150 when you have Dragonhorn Hunter. It's also our main entryway into an expert monster known as Evil Swarm Ophion. Yes, I really like to have this card in this deck to stop our opponent from getting out those really nasty monsters with higher attack than our stuff, and then we can just go ahead and say screw you and just have lots of fun with this. Next we go for the triple Flash Knight. This is our second scale 7. Nothing too fancy there. He actually is kind of crap compared to Lance, but still I want to run him because he goes for rank 4 plays a lot easier. Well, yeah, he's just nice to have. And it becomes 2000 under the influence of Dragonhorn Hunter too, so that's kind of neat. Next we go for the one Rescue Rabbit. Now this is the only effect monster that we run, as you can clearly see in the main deck, and there's a good reason for it. We just summon any vanilla we want that's level 4 or lower, so it's basically Alexandra Dragon, Heliotrope, or our Flash Knight should we really want to. Next we go for the double Polymerization. Now, I really like Polymerization. It's a really nice card. Because it allows us to go into first of the dragons. Now, this is one of the reasons also why this deck is so hand heavy, is because of Polymerization. Because you're gonna be going into this guy a lot because you don't a shitload of vanillas. So when you draw Polymerization, it's rarely ever going to be dead because all the monsters besides Rescue Rabbit are vanillas. Next we go for the one Reinforcement of the Army. This is a really nice card indeed because it allows us to search out our Flash Knight. That's basically why it's here. This deck has a lot of issues. If well, not necessarily. I mean, it would have a lot of issues if we didn't have access to things like Rhoda and, of course, Fossil Dig for the Lance. Because Lance is actually a dinosaur, believe it or not, which is really weird because it looks more like a dragon than a dinosaur, but yeah. Next we run the double Dragon's Mirror. This is in case we should go into something like an Honor's Arc, or something that just drops both of its materials for some reason. We can just go Dragon's Mirror those away and go for a first of the dragons immediately with just one card, which would be absolutely amazing to have on board because this thing is really jerkish against many decks. Next, of course, we go for the triple Summoner's Art. This is a really nice card because it searches out every single pendulum besides Flash Knight. So it's really nice. It searches out like 90% of your monster count. So yeah, well actually no, it searches out 50% of your entire monster count because we have the same amount of level 5 or higher as we have level 4 or lower. So that is really awesome. Next, of course, we go for the Mystical Space Typhoon. This is a nice little card to have. Just because of what it does, it allows us to pop back row, and this deck kind of don't like back row, so we want to deal with it easily. And next we finally run the Heart of the Underdog as our last spell. Now, this deck runs out of monsters in its hand relatively quickly, so having additional draw power is never a bad thing in this, especially since we run a shitload of vanillas, so we're gonna get a ton of cards. Next, of course, we run the Justy Break. We're on triple of this. This is actually a really nice card because it's basically a better version of Mirror Force, because it blows up everything that is face up that isn't everything on the field that isn't a face up attack position vanilla monster. So you just get to blow up every monster, which is really key in certain situations and allows you to go for your big pendulum pushes next turn, and just maybe even OTK your opponent. You can alternatively also use Raigeki for this. I actually want a faster means of doing so, but this is just more of a surprise card than anything else. Even though they're probably going to see it coming as soon as you summon that vanilla monster, they're probably going to see like, oh shit, they have Justy Break, if they know what this card is. If they don't know that this card exists, they're gonna have a bad time with this card. It's actually flipped on their asses. Next, of course, we go for the Unbreakable Spirit. I love this card. It's an honest in trap form, and it's just a nice little card to have. Because it forces your opponent to think carefully of what backer you have, if you have the Justy Break or this, and it also allows you to run over cards which you normally wouldn't be able to run over because of things like the Galaxy monsters and of course the Clifforts. This is amazing against those because they can just go ahead for an attack and you're just going to say Unbreakable Spirit, bitch, and then they're basically screwed after that. So next, of course, and the final card in the entire main deck is the Solemn Warning, and that counts out the main deck. So for the extra deck, we run triple First of the Dragons. This is our win condition. Bringing this guy out early on is a death sentence for most decks, because the only ways for them to get rid of this is with spell and trap monster removal. So, I mean, they can't use any monster effects to deal with this thing, period. No monsters, except for vanilla monsters, can run this guy over, and the effects don't work at all, which is really awesome, and it's very anti-meta, and it's just, oh, I love it, oh. Next, of course, we run the one Evolsaur Soldat, because Lance is a, dinosaur. We can go into this guy relatively easily. Next, of course, we run the one Gauntlet Launcher. Because of what he does, it allows you to blow up shit and get around things that we normally wouldn't be able to get around, such things as, the Shadow Construct, for instance. That kind of is a problem with it. Unless we have things like Justy Break and Unbreakable Spirit while normal summoning something. Next, of course, we're in the one Tiras. This is just to, get rid of additional cards, as well as it's a rank 5 play with the, full cult, so that's really awesome. The same thing goes for Audrius and Volcasaurus, just for extra burn and monster removal. Well, actually, face-up card removal in general. Next, of course, we run the one Evil Swarm Ophion, because we run the Heliotropes. Why not run Ophion as well? Because they go hand in hand with Rescue Rabbit and, of course, the Heliotrope and our Ophion, to stop those nasty high-level pendulum decks and things like that, such as Clifforts. Next, we run the Vylon de Sigma. This is just to get around other monsters, such as lights, or decks that I used to have one attribute of monster. We can get around them easy, no biggie. And then next, of course, we run the one Master Key Beetle to protect our pendulums and things like that. And it's actually really nice to have. You can also go for the safe zone Key Beetle lock in this, because you do run Heliotrope, so that's a thing you can do. Next, we run the one Carrying Gorgum. I love this card. It's also for protection for your freaking pendulums, because your opponent's going to try to MST them as quickly as possible, and having this thing just shuts that entirely down. It really just protects your pendulums, because there's not a lot of things that protect your pendulum zones, that hits pendulum zones without targeting right now, which is really, really important. You can also alternatively use Pendulum Moration, but I don't think it is on DevPro yet. Let me just check. No, it's not here. Let's see, Pendulum. Nope. Actually, no, here it is. You can alternatively use this card as well, but since we run a shit ton of pendulums anyway, you're probably not going to be able to, you can use this thing if you really want to. I don't see any like super duper use for it when we have things like Karen Gorgum that do this basically the same thing, but I can see it being used in other decks. Next, of course, we run the one Comics Hero King Arthur. You can alternatively switch this out for Excalibur. I just really like Comics Hero, and I'm still doing a lot of playtesting to see if this guy works better than Excalibur. I might actually switch over to Excalibur later on. And finally, we run the one Silent Honors Arc and the Evil Swarm Excision Knight, and that rounds up the extra deck. So tell me what you guys think about this deck, and I'm out.